Hi everyone, my name is Nestor. I'm the CEO of SolarWorks Energy, and this is a little bit of a behind the scenes at SolarWorks Energy and showing you under the hood what goes on in the day-to-day, how the process works start to finish. This video is intended for any homeowner that's interested in going solar and understanding what the process is, learning a little bit more about our company and about what we do. To get things started, I'm with our resident sales pro, Carlos Herrera. Carlos, how long have you been with the company?
I started at the very beginning of 2019, but really the beginning of 2020. So it's been about almost 6 years.
And what I love about Carlos is that he has an engineering background, very tech savvy, and has a really strong understanding of the components and everything that goes into solar. He also is responsible for training our entire sales force. So with that, Carlos, maybe just to kind of kick off a little bit about, maybe just walk us through kind of why do we do these in-home presentations? Because a lot of companies have tried this where they try to get quotes online, like they try to build solar systems online and just publish a price and give that to people. Like, why has that not really worked for anybody? And why do you think we do the in-home consultation?
Well, I mean, the short answer is, you could do it all online, but it would be very confusing. There'd be very, very little understanding. There'd be a lot of frustration from a homeowner's perspective because you don't know what you don't know. And you don't know why the thing that you paid for isn't happening. And nobody answers the phone for, all these entities that you're having to be involved with, whether it's the city or it's the utility company or even like the manufacturer of the equipment you're trying to purchase. There's just so many pieces involved. It can get really convoluted and confusing. And that's if you're a perfect candidate to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's the main issue is, honestly, we don't know if you're even going to be a good candidate, if your home's in the right condition. And it's just much simpler. It's much more cohesive. And it's easier for a homeowner to just see, feel, touch, and breathe these things while they're in their own home.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that also that every family has different needs, right? I mean, somebody their goal might be to eliminate their electric bill. Mm-hmm. Another family might be just trying to really eliminate some of these really high peak costs of their power bill. Or somebody might be interested in batteries and not really understand how a battery works. Some people might need extra electrical components that they have no idea that they need. Would you agree with some of that?
Yeah, it's kind of like a game of chess, really. It's like, you can do all these things, or you might get a battery or whatever, but you may think it's going to do something different and you didn't need it to begin with. Or you think you need all this equipment and really your problem was easily solved without half of it. Or on the flip side, you think this is a really simple process and it turns out you need a whole lot more and you don't find out until the end because you didn't do the busy work in the beginning.
And I've seen that where, somebody will buy some panels on eBay or something and they get all these panels and, they want to get them, they call us to try to get them installed. And these components they're not even registered to be able to get onto the grid, mm-hmm. like because of new code compliance. And so they spend all this money buying this equipment that ultimately they can't use. And then they're selling it on Craigslist or something else.
They can't even get a refund on it because you can't return it because there's so many pieces.
Right. Or the batteries, right? Or they find some batteries online that, they want to try to get it connected in the same thing. They're not to code.
Yeah.
We can't hook them up.
Yeah. It's like buying aftermarket parts for your car, right? Yeah. They might work, but there's probably a reason they were so cheap to begin with because that wasn't what they were designed to do.
And then the other thing about the financing, right? Because it's there's so many different options for financing, and I think most people, would you agree, don't buy these things outright, right? Mm-hmm. There's so many options for financing and making it affordable that almost nobody does pay cash, right? I mean, a few it happens, but very, very rarely, and even that process can be very challenging for the uninitiated, right? For somebody who doesn't really know what all the options are. And one bank might save you thousands of dollars in interest if you can qualify for it. But if you don't have the right person walking you through, helping you understand what you can qualify for, I mean, this is your experience as well.
Well, and there's so many options because there's so many different situations that need to be considered. And if you are on the outside and you're left with 30 different options and they all have different price points, you have no idea why you would choose one or the other, or if it's even relevant to you. Right. And that's honestly, that's the hardest part of this whole thing, is trying to figure out which rules you want to play by, because it depends on what your goal and your outcome is. Right. Some people want a very simple, lowest cost monthly payment that they can do, and we can do that. But another person might be interested in paying this thing off super quickly, and there might be a better option for that. And I can't help you if I don't know those goals and your aspirations. And, that's the real game here, is figuring out your goals and see how I can help with what I know align this idea with your goals.
So kind of walk us through, like, what's a typical consultation like? So, for somebody who might be interested in, getting a quote, how does the normal process work?
Well, the normal process starts with a lot of front end work on our part. So, we get the most important part of this piece, which is what your usage is, and that's shown on your electric bill. So part of the reason why we ask for the electric bill is there's not really anything we have to go on without that information.
People are like, I have a 2,000 square foot house.
Yeah.
How much solar?
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. What matters is what you use, how your life is, so that we can see if we can fit that in. So we take the bill, we use that information to create a design. So that's just the base information that we use to know how much power you need. And then we can analyze your house with software and satellite imagery and do what's called a shading analysis to see if we put solar panels on the house, if they'd even do the job they're supposed to do. That's the first step. And then and only then will we even take the time to come meet with you, because if it's not a good use of your time, it's not going to be a good use of ours.
Nice. Okay. So you get the bill, you get a preliminary design, you come to the house, you have something generally prepared, and that can oftentimes move up or down.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And what would kind of determine whether or not it would go up or down?
And again, it's back to goals, right? If your goal is to switch to a refrigerated air system, or get an electric car, or have kids, and your usage is going to go up, a hot tub, a pool, like all these things are going to affect your life long term. And there's a lot of questions that I'm going to ask the homeowner like that. And, whether they're going to be in the house for the next 2 years, maybe they're going to move, and maybe this isn't a good, use of time and energy because they're going to move in a year. But if they're going to move in 3 years, like, that could be a huge opportunity miss.
Yeah. Yeah. I had two friends, one, we're all about the same age, right? But one young family, really young kids, right? Electric usage might go up as the kids get older. They start using more, using more juice, right? Their needs might expand. Another family, kids are a little older, right? Lots of kids, and as those kids start to move on, they're predicting that their energy consumption will decrease. So, on one hand, we have a person that might need a little larger system than what their electrical usage is, and another one that it might need a little less, just depending on what the goals are.
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out that game, right? What do we need? This is all still, what do we need? We have a good basis, but where do we want to go? Because this is about freedom and control, right? This is about controlling what I want my lifestyle to be in the future, not what I'm doing right now. And I'm investigating those answers through different questions so that I know where we're trying to get. And then once I know where we're trying to get, then I can explain how it works, all the entities involved, and see if it's something that you'll qualify for from a financial perspective so that we can move forward, or know that it's not going to work.
What have you seen in the industry when people get this step wrong? Well, I think of a lot of things that happen, but what you've seen?
So some parts where they get this step wrong is they don't know that information, and they sell you a bill of goods that this is going to solve all your problems, without even knowing what the problem is. And then
Like a one size fits all, kind of slam it.
yeah, other people in your neighborhood had this size, so this will work for you. We have no idea. What if they're mining Bitcoin? What if they have a $50 bill right now, but they're about to do a major construction on the home?
What if they don't have tax liability?
What if they don't have tax liability and all that money that everybody told them they're going to get back, they didn't qualify for, right? These are all the questions why you have to be sitting there talking about like people, conversation, face to face, not over the phone, not over some AI chat bot, right? Personable, in-person conversation to figure out what you need.
Yeah. And I've seen issues where, people are promised tax rebates or they're explaining the tax incentives incorrectly. I've seen grossly undersized systems. I've seen grossly oversized systems. And I see everything in between, right? If you get this step wrong. And, there's nothing more frustrating than being told that your system's going to eliminate your electric bill and then turns out you're 20% undersized.
That's because their calculations were wrong.
Right.
Right.
So what steps do we take to kind of help ensure that doesn't happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, even if it makes all the sense in the world and we're moving forward, we still have basically stopgaps to make sure that everything that we've talked about in our final design is actually going to match up with what we talked about initially. So we do what's called a system validation. And that's to protect both of us. That's to protect you as the homeowner to say that this is going to produce as much as we said it was going to. And it's to protect us to make sure that 5 years, 10 years down the road, that we know if your system is malfunctioning or not. Because we have documentation that we did to show, hey, it should be producing this much. And it's not. Or it's way overproducing, sir. This is how much you're actually using now.
What are some of the common misconceptions that you find during a solar consult? Like what do most homeowners have in their mind that are pretty common?
I mean, pick one. One is that this is a scam, right? And that's because, unfortunately, our industry had some issues in its early days where tax credits were being not being discussed at all or being misrepresented, or utility rules that are very old that people think they get paid and they've been told they get paid, and that's not the case, depending on where you're at.
How about the when the grid goes down, right?
Oh yeah, or when the grid goes down, that your power is not going to go out.
It's a very common one. I mean, most people think like, hey, I got solar, solar power, right? Like grid goes down, my solar doesn't work.
Yeah, and solar is designed to work hand in hand with batteries, but sometimes you don't need one. And if you think that you're good forever, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. So a good section or a good chunk of our presentation involves just how does solar work, right? Like how does it work? What can you expect out of it? What does it do? What does it not do? We talk a little bit about batteries, about when might it make sense, when might it not make sense. We talk about what else? We talk about the tax credit. There's mention of the tax credits.
Yeah. Yeah.
We talk about equipment a little bit.
Talk about equipment, where it's made, why that's important. Warranties are a big thing.
Warranties, yeah.
How you're protected long term for this type of thing. And I stress this. It's just a game. It's just trying to figure out what are the best rules for you to play by. Because right now you're playing a game that you have to play, and you don't get a choice. And you play by whatever their rules are.
Who should be most concerned, or not concerned, but who should be most interested in solar, and who might it not make the most sense for?
Well, people who should be most interested are people who own a home that pay an electric bill. But people who it might not make sense for are people who don't have tax liability, may not be a good fit for them, or people who use very little energy. If you're rocking a $20 to $30 electric bill, if you're trying to save money, that's not what this product is. That's not what it's for that person. For that person, solar's for sustainability. It's for dependability. It's for worry warts. When the grid goes down, that you're your system is going to keep you powered and ready
If you have a battery.
if you have a battery, right? Especially for people who have high bills. Oh my God. Like if you have a bill north of $200, like you have got to look at this immediately because it's only going to get worse for you.
Yeah, I think from a pure economics, right? Let's not talk about batteries and resilience and all those things, but just a pure economics perspective, probably what, like it starts at about $100, 80 to $150.
Yeah,
Probably where you're going to see like it's going to make sense financially, generally speaking. Now, again, lots of things involved.
Mhm.
What is the roof like? What direction? Electrical. What is your electrical situation?
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it you have a pretty haggard electrical system that we need to update?
Yeah.
But even then, right? Solar can be a great a great thing to do if you do need electrical work, because that rolls into a lot of the incentives, right?
It's actually a reason why a lot of people get solar in general, right? Maybe solar sounded cool, sounded interesting, but they had a lot of updates that they've been neglecting on their home. And it's so easy to neglect things that need to get done in your home because they're not a problem now. But when you wait for them to become a problem, man, is it a pain. And we've been able to help a lot of people just solve those problems. And solar is this huge bonus that helped them solve the problem, helped pay for their problem, and the peace of mind that they get from solving that problem. Solar feels so much better.
Love it. When and maybe just there might be viewers around the country watching this, right? And so out of our service area, but even if they're in our service area or not, what should they be looking for during this presentation as like potential red flags or things that they should look for in the contractor when they're shopping around?
So potential red flags could be that their project is being subcontract. And not necessarily that that's a bad thing. If they've got a particular contractor that they work with every single time, that might be a good benefit. But if they just kind of hire whoever's cheapest, you have no idea who's doing the work. You have no idea what kind of quality that you're going to get. The sales guy might have been really nice and really, really informative and knew their stuff. But if he hands it off to somebody who's just really not that educated or hasn't done it a lot, it could turn out to be a really negative thing for your home.
Mm. What about in the consult? Like, so for example, we were in a training today, and real customer situation where they were told that they'd get the tax credit on a roof. They're like, hey, they told me I was going to get solar and a roof, and I'm going to get a tax credit on my roof. That's why I want to get a roof. Is that pretty common in your experience?
Oh, very, very common. And it goes back to the whole tax credit idea. It's the, what's the term? Not the white elephant, but it's the thing that is so misunderstood that it's really easy to just not talk about or not acknowledge and could get a homeowner in trouble, right? It could just be that that person was ill-informed and you're taking what they say as gospel. And, being educated, knowing how the tax credits work, being able to bring up documentation that proves what you're talking about, it should the homeowner ask, knowing where to go, knowing where it is, shows that you're working with somebody who knows their stuff and is pointing you in the right direction versus just off the cuff. Yeah, you'll get tax credits for everything.
Yeah. Any other tips for, potential buyers in dealing with solar professionals or unprofessionals that, for that matter, like, in the conversation of things that they should be looking for?
I think more than anything is to ask questions, just agreeing with them when they say, is this okay? Does that make sense? It's best to ask questions to get clarity and, more importantly, get clarity on what you want to get out of this. Because if it lines up with your goals in any aspect of life, if something lines up with your goals and you have an opportunity and it makes sense, execute.
Nice. Just maybe two more questions. One is, what's the number one thing or maybe the top three things that when you're talking to a homeowner, want the homeowner to understand by the end of the consultation?
The top three things that I would want a homeowner to understand would be, who are you working with? Does this line up with my financial goals? And what do I want to get out of it? Those would be the top three things. Because if I can align with those top three things, there's no reason that this isn't going to help your life.
And what do you love most about helping people go solar?
What I love about helping people go solar is it checks 3 boxes off for me in my life. I can provide for my family. I can help a person provide for their family, and I can help the world while doing it. And not everybody gets to do all three.
Especially not for a living, unless you're, spending a good chunk of your time in some kind of charity or something like that, or giving.
Well, and the thing is you can usually get two. You can help people and you can help the world, but you're going to have to be really, really frugal to do that. Or you can help people and you can make a living, but you may not be doing so great for the world. I get to do all three.
There is just, we might as well talk about it because it's in the House right now, a proposal to end the Section 25D, which is the 30% federal tax credit by the end of the year. Now, this is still in development. It's early, it's in the House. It hasn't gotten past the House yet, but what would the impact be for solar, for homeowners if this were to pass?
Yeah, I mean, the financial impact would be huge. Right now, 30% discount on this is substantial. And, if the government wants us to be clean in the environment and be a part of the solution, and they just take this away, it becomes difficult for your average person to be able to take advantage of these types of incentives. So if the House does this, it may make it more difficult for people to adopt, but that's all the more reason why you should probably take a look at this
sooner than later.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're talking, probably no less than a couple $1,000s up to tens of thousands of dollars.
I mean, on average, it's probably about $9,000 to $10,000 that we're just throwing into the ether.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share to anybody that might be watching this about your phase of the process?
My phase of the process, the only thing I would ask for is just give us the opportunity to show what it looks like for you.
How do we do things different at SolarWorks compared to what you've seen in the industry as a whole?
It's really based on our training, right? So what I mean by that is from top to bottom at SolarWorks, the way we're different is we're a NAPCEP certified company, which is specialized training just for solar, right? We're an A+ rated company, but from the sales side, we're problem solving oriented, right? When I go into a home consultation, I'm not trying to see how I can sell them solar. I'm trying to see what problems that they have in their life and if solar is advantageous to help solve those problems in their life. So and that could be many things. It could be credit card debt with a tax credit. It could be electrical issues.
A roof problem.
It could be a roof problem. It could be numerous updates they'd like to make to their home, but they just haven't had the capital that they needed, right? Problem solving oriented is how we're different from here at SolarWorks.
Well, thanks for your time and helping us and the viewers understand the first step of the process, which is the home consultation, which is really where the whole thing gets kicked off as a custom tailored proposal for a specific homeowner. Thank you. So now we're here with Brian Hall, our customer experience manager. Welcome, Brian.
Hello, Nestor. How are you doing today, bud?
Fantastic.
That's good. That's good. What are we going to talk to the folks about today?
So we are talking a little bit behind the scenes of just kind of what the process is. And so we just talked to Carlos. We talked about the consultation. Your department is customer experience and making sure that our customers, once they have decided to go solar, making sure that they're informed about all the steps. Then maybe let you tell the story a little bit more about, kind of what your role is and what you do here.
Yeah, so the customer experience team is generally meant to carry a customer through the project from point A to point Z. After they sign the contract with the company, then we go to work on shoring up the deal, making sure everything looks good. After that, we create a design for the homeowner. And then we go into a permitting process and we install the project, get the project inspected, and get them permission to operate, get that system turned on. So throughout that whole process, they need touch points of conversation. They need emails, text messages, phone calls, just to make sure that they know what stage of the project that they're at. There's delays with those permitting jurisdictions, if there's delays with the interconnection. there's delays at any point in the process, they need to be updated upon that. And then also at the end of the project, once they've completed everything, once everything's turned on, the tax process, which is huge for homeowners. We do have a staff tax consultant, and we set the homeowner up with that as well, which is kind of a distinctive aspect of SolarWorks Energy. But we found that having dedicated customer service staff does improve the overall impression that the customer gets throughout the project. They like to have someone who's going to be reliable when they do have a request for an update, or who has proactive communication with them rather than them just kind of waiting in limbo during the project.
Some of these projects can take a while to get through all of the steps. Probably what generally takes the longest part of this process?
What generally takes the longest is dealing with any kind of governmental jurisdiction. You're dealing with the city, you're dealing with the state, or you're dealing with the county jurisdictions that we have throughout New Mexico and Colorado. And that can get really tricky. Sometimes they're dealing with turnover, they're dealing with short staff, or they're dealing with situation where they've got, folks that don't really know how to look at plans. We have one of our staff members, she has to sometimes update and teach those folks how to read electrical plans. So we're really involved in educating not only utility companies, but also government jurisdictions on proper electrical technique and other things that are very important to getting these installations completed. But that process takes a long time.
Because you take weeks, right?
It could take months in some cases. We try to make it as quick as possible, but some of your outlying jurisdictions down south, some of your utility companies take longer than others. And so we just try to stick with it every step of the way and update the homeowner when it's taking longer and why it's taking longer. And that's generally the longest term part of the process.
Yeah. And, I think that's probably a pretty big misconception, right, about solar, is that unlike, most other home improvement projects, you can sign up and probably start work the next couple days. In a lot of cases, solar is probably the most unlike the other trades because of all of those steps. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Roofing, for example, you can get a roofing permit fairly quickly. You can get a job done fairly quickly. And that's sort of an easy comparative industry, even though you'd think that a roof would be more of a safety issue and whatnot. You don't have the electrical components that you're dealing with in the unique sort of situation where you're interconnecting with the utility. And so,
I've heard horror stories of people when they have tried to do it themselves, right? And they go in and then they start realizing the tangled web of, the departments, right? Whether it's the utility and what their requirements are, or whether that's the jurisdiction. And then they realize this is a different animal. Even electrical contractors.
Absolutely.
In some experiences I've seen.
What you see with electrical contractors is a lot of them aren't very good with the permitting process. They're more hands-on, and having a company that would do that work for you, even if we work with, say, an electrical subcontractor or something like that, but we have, of course, journeymen on staff as well. But our permitting process is streamlined to where even if we do have delays, it's going to be as fast as it can be. Whereas, a lot of folks get held up and they don't know what's next step to take because they're busy doing that work. They're going out on site, they're taking care of homeowners, directly doing installation work, and they don't have a permitting staff. So that's one thing they can run into.
That's a really good segue because I remember before you were here, you've kind of saved the day for us in a lot of ways. Before we had a customer experience department, customer experience team, we had project managers that would do kind of all of these things you're talking about. They would submit for permits, they would submit for interconnection, they're scheduling crews, they're talking to homeowners, trying to give updates. And sometimes in the worst cases, it can take months. And so the customer communication was always a point of a problem for us, always. And it wasn't until we had this team start, this customer experience team was directly responsible for communicating updates with the homeowner. We objectively saw we call it a net promoter score, and maybe we can get a little pop-up of what a net promoter score is. But our net promoter score was in the tanks probably 4 or 5 years ago. I remember this. And the constant feedback we got was there was not enough communication. And since the time you started and built the team out, right, it's completely turned all the way around. And we have one of the leading net promoter scores in not just solar, but almost any industry. I think our last net promoter score we ran was 80.
Yeah,
It was an 80,
that's accurate.
and it goes minus 100 to plus 100 is the ranking of where you can land. And so anything over 30, they say, right? They say anything over 30 is considered pretty good, right? Anything above 60 is considered world class. So thank you for driving that and delivering those results. I don't want to underplay, how big of an impact that's been.
Well, thank you, Nestor. I do appreciate that. And just, we do try when we're hiring folks, as you know, here at SolarWorks to generally hire people that are self-motivated and can kind of, run their own department and not need a lot of assistance. And in this case of customer experience and customer service, you can be caught in a lot of catch-22 situations, a lot of things that the news that you have may not be what the customer wants to hear. But just having that voice on the other end or that message, back within 24 hours, it really does help the customer to know that we're still in their corner, even if there's problems with the project. And I think that even if their project's delayed, the general impression is much improved in that scenario.
I love that. Maybe can you talk a little bit about your philosophy of customer experience or customer service? Like maybe just to go under the hood of like, how do we view customer service and what's our general philosophy around it?
The three aspects of customer service that we emphasize here at SolarWorks Energy are clarity, knowledge, and honesty is what I would say. Clarity in terms of when you're communicating with a homeowner, you don't want to get caught in the weeds of technical wording and things like that, but you want to give them enough information to where they're clear on what's pending on the project, what the step is that needs to be completed by them, or what's next coming on the part of the company. And honesty in terms of sometimes people want to hold back, right? They don't want to give all the information. They don't want to share when there's a problem. But if you are clear with the homeowner that it's just part of the process, and even if it's a complex issue, yellow zones here in New Mexico, for example, with PNM, they're generally very understanding about it. But if you try to hold back and you don't give full honesty, then people will see that. They'll know that. And I think that there's a lot of experience in the solar industry with people that have not been given full honesty. Even when they maybe have had customer relations, it's been general and non-specific, and they don't feel like they know where they're at with their projects. And so we try to be definitely honest when we're dealing with homeowners.
We're a contractor. I don't know a contractor on the planet that's never made a mistake. When we make a mistake, it's rare, I know. When we make a mistake, what has been your experience of how do we fix it? And maybe any examples kind of come to mind?
There's been issues with various different aspects of solar projects. And I like to remember some times where we've, come together as a team solutions. Sometimes it's a situation where a homeowner didn't get their state tax credit, right? They weren't able to submit in time. There was problems with communication perhaps before the process got streamlined. And so we'll just try to work with the homeowner to help them out in that situation to the point where even if they have a partial loss, it's not complete. We'll work with them on resubmitting now that the state has money back in the coffers to get retroactive state tax credits given to homeowners. Our staff tax consultant works with them there. We've had situations where our operations manager, we're all a big operations team, and we come together as a group, and sometimes, Chris or one of us will go out to a homeowner's house and do a personal apology and just shore up that relationship in person. It's a team effort. And I think that we go above and beyond in the sense that even if we do make a mistake, a project takes, heaven forbid, but has happened a couple of years to complete because of some unique scenario with a carport or a permitting issue. We're all communicating with the homeowner. We're all working to get the project done, and we're never leaving the homeowner hanging.
Love that. Is there anything else that you want to share maybe about your part of the process and specifically with customer experience that you feel like people should know that makes us a little bit different or that we do a little different at SolarWorks?
I would say that the most important thing for a homeowner to understand if they do go with SolarWorks Energy is that the philosophy of the company is more important than just the customer piece. I think that There's a responsibility aspect on the ownership side, on the financial side. A lot of these companies, they're not very good with money, and so they'll sell a lot of projects. They'll come into a community and kind of wreak havoc, and then they'll back out. National companies, for example. Local companies have even been going belly up, and we take financial responsibility very seriously. We take customer experience very seriously. And just, closing out projects, getting them permitted, getting them inspected so that we don't have a backlash like so many companies have that have made the industry look a little shady to some people. I think that the ethic of the company as a whole is more important than the customer experience aspect.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time and sharing with our viewers a little bit about your part of the process. And I think it's probably a good thing for even our viewers that are not within our territory or considering other companies to kind of ask questions about what does the back end support look like? When there's a question like who will I be talking to and what is their job? I mean, are they the person that's going to be doing all of this other work and I'm never going to be able to talk to them? Or is it going to be somebody that's going to be, giving me that white glove kind of service that you mentioned?
Absolutely. The lowest bidder, you get what you pay for sometimes, and we've had that experience. And so, just know that if you go with SolarWorks Energy, you're going to get a fully orbed approach to installing a solar system that will take care of the customer side, the permitting side, the financial side, and then when you're up and running, also the service side afterwards.
So one thing that's pretty unique to the New Mexico market is that we have a 10% state tax credit. And this tax credit has historically given a lot of people some challenges because it's pretty complicated to get through, right? I mean, for an average homeowner to get all that information is pretty tough. So how have we been able to kind of solve for that or shore up that problem of the tax credit?
Yeah, so the state process has changed quite a few times over the years. It used to be a process where a homeowner actually had to mail in all their paperwork to to Santa Fe, and Santa Fe would lose a lot of that. There was problems there. The process has gone fully online, and a lot of folks get overwhelmed by it. SolarWorks Energy just tries to streamline the process completely for the homeowner. We set up an email package that has all the forms, all the paperwork that you need in order to go through the online process. Our staff tax consultant gives you step-by-step comprehensive directions on how to apply for the state tax credit certificate. The certificate holds your place in line, holds the money for you for when you actually do your taxes. And so you're basically allocating funds in advance for when you put in that tax credit. And so, having that streamlined process to where all you're doing is sort of a plug and play with all the forms that you need, it really helps homeowners that aren't that tech savvy and ones that, they wouldn't normally know how to go after that information and those forms that are needed. Stephanie also helps with the federal credit as well. Federal credit's a more streamlined process, but if a homeowner has a difficulty submitting or dealing with that with their accountant, she's experienced enough to where she can give solid, reasonable advice. And we even have an accountant that works for us that's very well versed in tax credits as well. So even on the accounting side, we can recommend someone that'll help you get best bang for your buck. And so really, I think that those relationships and that dedicated position is one of the best things for customer service in the solar industry in the country, because that's what homeowners will struggle with generally the most is the state tax credit. And the federal can be a problem too. And we shore you up before you get to that stage.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Brian. I know you're busy, so I'll let you get back to it. But thanks for walking us through that.
Thank you, Nestor.
Next up, I have Amberly Martinez, who's our Assistant Operations Manager. Welcome, Amberly. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Amberly, how long have you been here now?
5.5 years.
Wow, time flies.
It does.
Maybe just for some context, I think you have a really cool story here, just to maybe talk about, when you started and kind of what your journey has been inside the company.
So when I started here, I was kind of like taking a filler position, a very entry-level position here. Wasn't quite sure, that I knew really anything about solar. And so starting here was a lot of fun, and I got super into the culture and the atmosphere. And the more that I started stepping into the operations realm of things, I just realized we had such incredibly talented staff here. And so I took every opportunity that I possibly could to just have conversations, show up to job sites, and just really get to the nitty-gritty of like exactly what we do every day. And so that was eye-opening for me and immediately sparked this really huge interest and passion. And so I just kind of pursued that, and now I'm in operations full time. So
and I don't want anybody to lose this. I went into their office a couple weeks ago, and she has this code book. It's like this thick. It's like this code book that's this big, and inside it looks like a Bible. It was like underlined, and notes are written all over it, and sticky notes are in this thing, and it was really cool. And because I think that you've really earned a lot of respect from the crews here, from the inspectors on the job sites. I mean, you've kind of built a reputation in the industry as as a solar badass.
thank you.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of just willing to be able to make connections with anybody and everybody that is a subject matter expert. And so in doing so, over almost 6 years now, I'm one of the solar subject matter experts. So that's super exciting. So
What do you like most about operations and field operations too? What do you like most about it?
I'm a nerd. And so I just really like diving into the code, diving into the theory of how these things work, the safety aspect of it, the compliance. And, the more that these things are evolving over time, the technology is getting incredibly advanced and it changes every single year. It really becomes hard to stay not just relevant, but also stay up to date with, everything that's happening and all the innovation. And so that's just kind of where I chose to stay in that realm of seeking to learn as much as I possibly could from anybody willing to sit in the room and talk nerdy with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit in our last segment, but the process can be a little complicated, dealing with utilities and HJs. But maybe can you kind of just walk us through, as high or low level as you want to go on just kind of, okay, once somebody signs up and they go solar, obviously Brian's team is helping to communicate with customers what's going on, but you're the one actually, you're pulling the levers and moving the gears to actually get this thing, to completion. So maybe can you just walk us through a little bit about what that process is like?
Yeah. So, from the customer aspect, we want this to be as painless as possible. And that is not an easy task to come to completion and to really make it an enjoyable process for the homeowner. And so something that we work really hard at is developing the relationships and also, like I said, getting in the rooms with the people who are making the decisions, giving the approvals, and making sure that we all continue to be on the same page. We continue to educate ourselves. So that way it makes the process super easy when it comes to dealing with the utility companies, the engineers, any of the inspectors, the plan reviewers with your permits, and making sure that we're doing everything that we can to stay in compliance and make it just, they know exactly what they're getting when they see SolarWorks pop up on their desk and they're like, yeah, no, we're on the same page. And so it makes it a lot less cumbersome than it could be for, someone who hasn't been in the industry for many years.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so what are those steps? Like what are the, what are the steps to get this thing to completion?
Yeah. So the first thing that typically happens after, the sale goes through is we send someone out to do a site survey. And so they look at your, electrical system, they look at your roof. We want to make sure that, everything is up to code, up to standards. And if there's anything that we can do to help bring you further up to code, because codes change every 3 years. So making sure that we get that taken care of up front. And then from there, if everything looks good or we make any changes on that front, it goes out to our engineering team. They also check for compliance, for safety, and, that everything is going to end up passing the inspections in the end. Once that takes place, we submit all of those engineered drawings to the utility company on your behalf. And then we also do the same thing with the permits. Once all of those approvals come in, then
And that can take a while.
Yeah. So it depends on the utility company and it depends on the time of year, of course. It can take anywhere from a few weeks to a few months, depending on what your jurisdictional needs are in that area. So once we have everything like that squared away, we're ready to get you installed. We give you a call and we get really excited. This is the best part of the process, right? So we send our installation crews out. They typically are able to install the system within the same day. And if the jurisdictions are also, pretty caught up with their stuff, we can usually get your inspection scheduled within about a week of that date. So it goes pretty quickly. Once we get the safety inspections and everything done with the permitting departments, then we'll kick it back over to the utility company and then get your system turned on pretty quickly.
Nice. And that the fancy word for that is PTO, right? Permission to operate the utility. And that's basically the day that you start producing power and can use that power. And if it's within that jurisdiction or that utility, be able to sell back to the grid, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Once we get that permission to operate from the utility company, then we start taking care of the financial end of things that the homeowners are super excited about as well. So getting tax forms and, some of those things I've noticed that a lot of other companies at times have made it pretty cumbersome. And, of course, the state and the federal government can also make it a little bit more cumbersome for you to get your tax credits. And so something that I love that we do is do a step-by-step, walk you through and hold your hand through it. And, whether or not someone's eligible this year, we're always right back on the phone the next year, and we'll do everything that we can to make sure that, you're able to reap the benefits.
Nice. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face on a day-to-day from an operational perspective that the homeowner may not see, but are real challenges for you?
I think real challenges really come into play from a perspective of, things are continuing to change when it comes to manufacturing, when it comes to product availability and stuff like that. And so something that we really try to keep our pulse on is, what is the industry doing? Where is it trending? And how can we make sure that we stay ahead of the curve? What new code changes are coming through and how is that going to affect our customers? Really just trying to keep our ear to the ground, stay ahead of the curve. And that way, we're not caught in the middle of something and having to pivot last minute, because that's never the best way to approach things.
Yeah. And maybe to talk about the installers too, right? Because I think I'm very proud of our installers. I know you were very proud of our installers. Why? Like, what do you think sets our installers apart? The ones that are actually installing this equipment, maybe from our competitors or just, what you've seen out there. Like, what have you noticed?
There is a very clear passion from our installers on what they do every day. And someone who is not only passionate, but takes pride in the quality of work that they do is something that is so extremely hard to find. And so I want to say it happened by accident, and I don't know how we got so lucky, but it was very deliberate. And our installers have been with us for, several years. They've got hundreds of thousands of panels installed under their belt. They are the experts. And something that I really loved getting to see is sometimes they'll share a video. They'll take a video and be like, yeah, look at that work. Look at those clean lines. Look at this great conduit work. And just seeing how excited they are to show me and to show, our team, like, hey, this is what we did today, is unmatched.
Yeah, I think that's a really important differentiator, because we could be the company that finds the cheapest labor that we could. And, what are the risks of that, do you think?
If you have people who are very new to the job, this is electrical wiring after all. If you're installing panels on the roof, there's an electrical aspect to the level of knowledge. You have to be very deliberate about keeping yourself up to date with, what's really going on with the new equipment and making sure that the roofs aren't getting, penetrations with leaks. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. And so if you have someone, this is their 75th day on the job in this industry, there's kind of a lot at stake. And this is a home that costs, most people's life savings. And so we take that very seriously. And so these installers and our electricians, they take constant continuing education courses. They're always training up on the newest things going on with, technology, new mount systems. So they are the subject matter experts, and I continue to learn from them.
We've had a team that placed. I don't think we won the national competition, but we placed what was it, second or third?
Second.
I mean, in the country, right? That was one of our teams. We have another one of our electricians that won it was a state. You could speak more about this. There's a huge tree. We had a trophy this big,
I should have brought it with me.
I know.
I should have set it right here in the middle.
Yeah.
So our electrician was involved in a statewide craft competition. And so since he won at the state level, he actually got a chance to go to nationals in Las Vegas, Nevada, and he did great there. But just to even be playing in that large of an arena with, everyone in the country, that they're traveling all to Vegas of all places, and he's kicking butt. It's so awesome. And they're so stoked and so proud of all of those accomplishments.
What would you say makes you proud about the way our ops team works? So, and that's just ops in general. It could be field, it could be office, it could just be all of it. Like what?
I think our strong desire to, not that we're always perfect, because this is construction after all. There's a lot of things going on, and there's always so many balls up in the air that, like I said, we're not always perfect, but at the end of the day, we do anything and everything that we can possibly do to make sure that at the end of the day, our customers mean everything to us. And that relationship is extremely important, because it's the relationship doesn't end when the panels are on the roof and your system's turned on. We offer a 25-year warranty, and just being able to have a really great relationship with that person for the next 25 years is something that is paramount to our team. So anything that we can do to make sure that, even if something doesn't go exactly to plan, that at the end of the day, the relationship with the customer is most important.
Can you speak a little bit to maybe service? So like post install, post turn on, what maybe just comments around either the philosophy of service or just what you've experienced about service in general?
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, we are installing technology. And so as with most technology, some things are bound to pop up from time to time. Some things will go out here and there. I'm glad that we do use products and offerings that have really, really strong backing with the warranty end of things. And so that is super helpful.
This is also deliberate.
Yes.
Because we could go just super cheap too.
Right.
And then make our lives harder too, right?
Right. But we also actively monitor systems for the lifetime of the system. And so if there's any time that we get an alert and it comes up on our page, we're working to contact the customer. And there's a lot of times that we contact someone and say, hey, we actually noticed that there's something going on with the communication on your system. We're going to send somebody by to take a look for you. And they're like, wow, I didn't even know. That's great. And so even just being able to be proactive on that end of things is, I think, something that is unique about what we offer and how we're here to support our customers.
Amberly, thank you so much for your time and explaining that back end. I think this is going to provide a lot of value for those who are interested in solar, maybe have made a decision to go solar, and maybe that they just want to understand a little bit deeper at a deeper level. I think this content would be very useful for that. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you for hanging out with us this far. Last but certainly not least, we have Christy Martinez, who's our accounting manager. Thank you for joining us. Such a critical role in this business, such a critical department. And I think the saving grace in a lot of ways for running a sustainable business, because I like to say that, I'm not trying to make short-term moves and I'm not trying to just make as much money as possible in the short run at the expense of the long run. I really believe that, to build a sustainable business, you have to have good systems and processes to last 20, 30, 50 years down the road. And I think that your team has been absolutely paramount to helping us do that. And, maybe just, this is how many years now?
A little more than 6.
6. And I would love for you to just maybe share a little bit about your backstory and, what the evolution has been like for you working here. And
So I started with SolarWorks in February 2019, so just over 6 years ago. Kind of like Amberly, I came in on a totally low-level job that I just figured was going to get me between a divorce and the rest of my life and help me just kind of catch my breath and my feet so I could move on with things. And then accidentally fell in love with the company. You and Chris and James and all of our team at the time were just like, they were the comfort, the support, the motivators, the encouragement on rough days that I could get comfortable with, grow with, and succeed with. And so what I intended to be like a 6-month stint between, my actual career and my background and what I thought my future was going to be.
we trapped you.
Yeah, but I found a home here. So I stayed.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I started in ops with Chris and Amberly. Before Amberly, we started a roof business on the side a little bit. We've done a lot. We've grown into new states together. We have completely navigated so many ups and downs. COVID, for goodness sake, we went through COVID as a business. And then I ended up slowly making my way. My background actually is in finance and treasury and investment and audit. So it made sense for me to kind of pivot into more of the accounting role here and serve for our team in that way with my best skill set. So this has been a great fit.
So what do you love most about accounting? Or maybe accounting here. Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers don't lie ever, anywhere. They are the data. That's the end all be all. It is what it is. You can't change it. You can try to narrate it a little bit if you really push, but the numbers are the numbers. You can look at them and make good decisions or look at them and think we have to make better decisions,
So, there's been a lot of shakeout in the solar industry and it probably contracting in general, right? I mean, I think that, the contractors are constantly going in and out of business, changing their names, going back to market. In your opinion, why do you think that we've been sustainable and have gone through some rough patches, been through COVID, right? We've gone through some pretty tough times. What, in your opinion, kind of what do you think, how did we do that?
I think you're really great at making this business non-reactionary. So even while things are kind of falling apart in the market, in the news, in the economy in general, we have stayed the course. We have made sound financial decisions. We don't take on boatloads of debt for no reason. We don't take on debt at all, really, if we can afford not to. And to date, we haven't needed to. We make choices that keep long-term decisions in mind. So we're choosing mechanical, electrical, subcontractor partners. All of our partners, all of our vendors, all of our materials are coming from reputable places. We're not trying to get you the cheap, the off-brand, broken, cheap, redone, repackaged items for your homes or for our customers' homes or for our teams, our families. We're taking the time to do the research, the background. We're vetting our business partners and our materials to make sure that they're going to last for you guys. Like we don't want you to be looking for something new next week. We want this to be a 25-year commitment, a 50-year commitment, whatever it's going to be. We want to be there. So we're making the decisions today that make it so we can be there for you all tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think having a robust accounting department is really critical because, in a lot of ways, you and your team have kind of been our, we like to call it, I like to call it gas and brakes, right? So, as a CEO, I want to go and I want to grow and I want to expand markets. And if that's all there was, which a lot of companies, that's all there is, it's cool idea, but if it's not sustainable, you're gonna burn out pretty fast, whether that's burnout of energy, cash, resources, people, human capital, those kinds of things. And I think that your team has done a really good job of the balance of power, right? Where it's let's make sound financial moves, sound operational moves that are sustainable and that can last. And maybe any comment around that or?
Sure. So, like every good CEO and sales rep, you need to spend money to make money. That's the bottom line, right? And there's lots of ways you can spend money. There's lots of ways you can give away money. And that's where a lot of our competitors have gone wrong is, sales reps, for example, they earn a commission. That's how they make their bread and butter. You give them too much money, and now you're taking on debt to make sales. And so you've got this literal red line going where you're consistently getting further and further into debt. So you have to be able to incentivize your teams, your employees to make a living wage, a comfortable living wage, so they're not doing shady things that were costing you money in the long run, but also so that they are not hurting the business and hurting their own future to eat again tomorrow, So it's this fine line on how do we give enough, but not so much that we don't want to borrow from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. And you do a lot of work on the compliance side and making sure that that we're licensed, that we're insured. Any comment that you want to make there about, maybe just how you go about that in the day to day, any comments there?
Yeah, we just renewed all of our policies. So I got to go through, and we do this probably quarterly, but every year I do a very deep, thorough look at where are we covered? What are we missing? What new coverages should we be considering given the environment, given the markets that we want to move into, given the economy and what's happening globally? And so like this year, we brought in a new set of cybercrime insurance that we hadn't needed before, but we've grown to a point now where we have enough people and enough digital exposure that we want to make sure our customers are taken care of, our employees, our contractors are taken care of. And so we added this new policy. But we shopped, right? We looked for a policy partner. Even our insurance partners are people we're vetting. We're making sure that they're going to be reliable, that we can count on them if something does go wrong, that our customers can count on them if something does go wrong. It's not that we expect it to, but that we don't want to be caught in the dark with no way to make everybody whole at the end of the day. So we work very hard to make sure that the company maintains great business ratings. We maintain great insurance rates. We're not afraid to spend on our insurance because, again, we want it to be there for our customers, our employees, our contractors, everybody at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think that, there's a lot of contractors that kind of overlook some of these things, and maybe they were insured and now they're not. And, some of the challenges that can come from a homeowner's perspective, right? If you're dealing with somebody that, I might paint a straw man here, but you're a company, you're doing the bare minimum to be compliant. You're hiring the cheapest labor that you can find. You're getting the cheapest components that you can find, and you're slapping it as fast as you can in a market that you have no intention of staying around in. And maybe can you just kind of talk a little bit about, like, is that us? And you already said that it's pretty clearly not, but from your perspective, just maybe what makes us a little bit different as a whole.
So we get approached pretty regularly by those vendors, by those contractors, and they want to do business with us because we have a good, strong business, and we decline, period. If you don't have a solid W-9, if you don't have certificates of insurance, if you don't have a good business reputation, or we get the littlest inkling that what you're doing doesn't align with our integrity and our excellence, we're going to walk away from that contract. It may save us money in the short run, but we don't want that liability in the long run. We don't want our customers to have that experience in the long run. This is their home. This is their forever. So for some people, this is what they're leaving their children. And we don't want it to be something that they have regrets about, that they have, any kind of fear or concern about. We want this to be solid for them and for their loved ones forever.
And one thing I love about the department is that it's so good at being the I call it the police, right, of the organization, but it's true, and I just imagine how many contractors are out there that don't have a strong compliance team, that aren't thinking about like the what if scenarios and how easy it is for a contractor to get off the rails and start doing some pretty unethical and shady things. And what I really appreciate about the department is how, as a whole, it's like really quickly bringing things up. Like something looks even moderately suspicious or suspect, and it's like, hey, this is going on, and then we can address it as a team. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I kind of look at it like, there's amateurs and there's professionals, and a strong compliance accounting team. Like there's so many contractors out there that don't know their numbers. they don't have good financial record keeping, and they have all the best intention in the world to be successful and to help the customer. But because they don't have these systems in place and the people in place to report and to show that, hey, this company, you're unprofitable, or you're spiraling, that it's really, really easy to find yourself in a really destructive place where, in the worst case scenarios, right, companies, within months go bankrupt and leave hundreds of customers kind of stranded, and we've seen that in the local market, and it's the farthest thing from what we intend to do. Any comment on that? Or
Sure. So back to what we've been saying all along, our integrity matters, not just because we want, to continue making sales or to continue to serve our communities, but because we want, like, that was part of my interview when I started with you guys. I wanted to be able to walk into grocery stores wearing my SolarWorks gear and not have people going, oh my gosh, you work where? And like, I didn't want to get harassed in public because they thought I was working for a disreputable place. And so it's a point of pride for me to walk out with my gear and know that if I get stopped, I can answer proudly and say, yeah, I do. We've been serving the community. Here's what our Better Business Bureau ratings are, and we can do those things because we're not cutting corners, because we know what we're spending. We know where the dollars are going. Knowing that gives you the ability to make the decisions so that we don't have to end up in those places where we're not getting desperate and making desperate choices. We have the information, we have it timely, we have it accurate so that you can make good decisions for everybody,
Love that. Is there anything else that you would that you think would be relevant or helpful for our customers to know about the business?
We're in it for the long haul. We want to serve our community, our families, our employees and their families for as long as you'll possibly have us. So we're making decisions today in every way to let that happen.
So with that, that is a little bit of behind the scenes. You've gotten a little bit of the experience from different functional departments. We've gone through the consultation, the front end, and what goes into, the front end of the process, where a lot of the heavy lifting goes in the beginning, all the way to our systems around customer service and how we communicate with our customers. Talked a lot about the back end and all of the nuts and bolts and how this whole project gets put together, and sometimes how long it can take. And then we've given you a little bit of background on our controls in place, and I think some of the things that help separate us from our competition and really distinguishing us as professionals in the industry and not amateurs. So with that, I hope that you consider us for your solar or roofing project. Also batteries, electrical service upgrades. We also recently got our MM98 license, where we can do heating and cooling heat pumps specifically. So if any of that's interesting to you, just you can reach out to us on our website, www.solarworksenergy.com, or you can look us up on Google.